If you didn't already know, different works of literature, films, comics, or pieces of culture usually get adapted around the world to fit a culture seamlessly. There are many examples of this, and one that is more obvious is West Side Story, being a retelling, or adaptation if you will, of Romeo and Juliet. Similarly, urban legends from across the world are also adapted or even just slightly altered when they clash with another culture. A prime example of this is Bloody Mary. While this legend may be known as Bloody Mary here in the States, and almost any other predominantly English-speaking country, it varies in other places, such as Mexico and South America, where instead of Bloody Mary, they have Veronica. They share similar rules, similar backstories, and hopefully by now you see where I'm heading with this. The legend we'll be covering in this video is similar to one that I've actually covered in the past. On this video, we'll be covering the legend of Smiley Face. In short, this story stems from Europe, and is about a man who does terrible things to women who walk home alone at night. So let's just jump right into it. One night, Carly, 18 at the time, went to a nightclub with her friends. They had a wonderful time, drinking and dancing. Unfortunately for them, they all had to head home, and so they did. The girls left around 3 a.m., and while Carly's friends left one way, Carly was left by herself as she lived on the other end of town. Unable to get a cab to take her home, she opted to walk under the impression that her neighborhood was relatively safe, and she didn't want to stay out all night in front of a club. As she made her way through the cold, desolate night, she decided to take a shortcut through the park. While walking through the park, she noticed how quiet everything seemed. She even noted that she could hear the crackling of her heels as they made contact with the pavement below her. Everything was fine until she heard a noise coming from the bushes. She turned around and asked, "Who's there?" When she got no response, she simply turned around and quickened her pace. She almost made it out the entrance of the park when a man suddenly appeared out of nowhere. But before Carly had any time to react and run away, the man managed to grab hold of her arm. Carly turned her face to take a look at the man. His face was scarred. Not your simple, single scar across the eye, like many have in the movies, but he had so much scarring you could barely see his mouth, much less his eyes. His head was also horrendously misshapen. Carly, now fearing for her own safety, started to weep and plead with the man to let her go, to which he responded with a simple grin. He opened his mouth slowly, and you could see the lust in his eyes. Not with the intention of sex, mind you, but for something much, much worse. He then asked, "Do you want death or a smiley face?" "Please, just let me go," she cried. "Death or a smiley face?" he insisted. Carly, unaware of what he meant, she cried, "Smiley face!" The man pinned the girl down, pulled out a knife, and sliced the corners of Carly's mouth, ear to ear. The man soon made his escape, although, eerily enough, he didn't run. He just walked away, whistling into the night. Carly would soon be found by a nighttime jogger, who quickly called the ambulance. From that point forward, Carly would be forever scarred, and when people saw her in public, they would always mutter, in between their teeth, that she resembled a grotesque smiley face. This urban legend is pretty chilling, and the same could be said for others, but this one in particular bears a striking resemblance to a far more recognized / famous one. Haven't guessed it yet? This urban legend is simply the European adaptation, or version if you prefer, of Kuchi Sakiyana, otherwise known as the Slit-Mouthed Woman. The two share a clear similarity between the haunting antagonists. Specifically, when they ask their victim a question that ends badly for them. While in Kuchisake Yana's legend, she asks, "Do you think I'm pretty?" Both legends end in a similar fashion, either you dying or getting a Joker-like smile. However, while you can confuse Kuchisake Yana so you can buy yourself enough time to escape, the same cannot be said for Mr. Smiley Face, as some on the internet like to call him. Unlike his Japanese counterpart, Mr. Smiley Face is a tangible being. So if you run into him, I doubt you'll make it out alive. On the other hand, because he actually is tangible, he can be physically hurt. So carrying a knife, or mace at hand, could be very useful against such a foe. But that's implying that he is in fact real. Which actually brings us to our next point. Given everything you just heard, is this legend real? As unfortunate as it may be, or fortunate depending on your views, I am sadly disappointed to say that this legend is probably fake. From what I can tell, there are no news stories detailing any man like Mr. Smiley Face going around Europe slitting people's mouths. Although, I did find this interesting case. On January 29th, 2017, Matthew Grady burst into his ex's home, Siobhan Stevenson, 23, and slashed a knife across her face, leaving a scar going ear to ear. A scar that resulted in her getting 44 stitches. In the end, it is very likely that this urban legend is nothing more than just that, a legend. Even still, it doesn't mean it's not a fun campfire tale to throw around, or a simple scary story to tell your friends, when you're all hanging out that is. Either way, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about it. Feel free to share your thoughts, below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated. So, with that out of the way, let me leave you with this little factoid. Did you know 60% of murder victims between the years 1993 and 2007, in the US alone, were female, according to the US Department of Justice?